But I saw James Connolly's ghost in the Cowgate lake last night. So I followed him up and into Stephen Law's close, where he disappeared out of sight. But I searched around through stone cobbled streets, but I never saw him more. So I took myself down the same stone steps where James Connolly walked before.
Well, there is a page in history when the workers they fought back, when the might of exploitation last began to crack. In farm and field and factory and workshop, mine and rail, a flame was lit, a beacon bright, the flame was burning still. And Connolly was there, Connolly was there, bold, brave and daunted, James Connolly was there. Now William Martin Murphy and his Dublin millionaires tried Barbary, compersion, hypocrisy and pairs. Despite the transport union, the Scots they did enlist, but all the crop was shattered by a scarlet iron first. Oh, Connolly was there, Connolly was there, bold, brave and daunted, James Connolly was there. When the bosses tried to switch the lads on down in Glasgow's Clydes, a voice and roaring thunder should buy them by their side. In Liverpool and Belfast, where the worker lives in hell, but Connolly rose and gave them hope, and the truth you I did tell. And Connolly was there, Connolly was there, oh, brave and daunted, James Connolly was there. Oh, Irishmen, the day will come when the workers, one and all, will rise up from their bended knee and rally to the call. Throw out the boss's tyranny, shout from shore to shore, from a working man's republic and freedom evermore. And Connolly will be there, oh, Connolly will be there, bold, brave and daunted, James Connolly will be there.
Thanks very much, Stevie. As I say, this event is to celebrate Republic Day, and these events are happening right across Ireland, from Dublin, Derry, Belfast, foot Tyrone, and there's no more fitting a place to celebrate Republic Day, the beginning of a revolution in 1916, than here at the birthplace of James Connolly. I'm now going to introduce a speaker who's going to speak about events, not in Ireland, but events which are very connected with Ireland's struggle for freedom. The campaign for a yes vote in 2014. The James Connolly Society, as you can see by the banner up here, supports the 1916 Society's campaign for an all-Ireland referendum, one Ireland, one vote. And we also support a yes vote in 2014 because since our formation over 25 years ago, we've always campaigned for the breakup of the UK state. Not because we support the SNP or nationalist parties, but because we believe that the breakup of the state would be a good thing, and the breakup of the state offers opportunities for Republicans and for working class advancement. So I'd like to ask somebody now to come along, Alan Armstrong, a very good friend of ours, to speak on behalf of the Radical Independence Campaign. Thanks, sir.
Thanks very much, Jim, for inviting me along to Republic Day today. Virtually everybody in the audience here has an Irish connection, but what I hope will happen over the next few years is Republic Day becomes a day for Republicans in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, yes, and even England too. 20 years ago, I was on the first of the Connolly marches in Edinburgh. If you like, it was the Connolly Society that raised the banner of republicanism first in Edinburgh. But that's a banner that we want to take beyond Edinburgh, beyond Ireland, across the whole of these islands. And it's become more important today than ever because it took, if you like, 40 years for the UK state, the British state, to tame that challenge that first emerged in Ireland. That challenge that emerged over the civil rights and then republicanism. 40 years it took for the UK state to bottle that up. And I suppose with the Downing Street Agreement, they managed to achieve that particular aim. That doesn't mean republicanism has gone away. In fact, republicanism never goes away. Even if it's knocked back for a period, it returns. And in some ways, this event today, Republic Day, is an attempt to return republicanism to the people of no property. And we will come back again through campaigns like the campaign for the People's Referendum for United Ireland, but also for the campaign to break up the UK state, the battle for self-determination in Scotland. And when we're doing that, we're not just doing that as, you know, as Jim has said, support for the SNP. There are two different visions of Scotland in this Yes campaign. And those of us who know all about the tradition of James Connolly know there are always two traditions. There's that nationalist tradition and there's the Republican tradition. When we look at the nationalist tradition represented by the SNP, who do they see as their allies? Well, you see people like Brian Souter, as George Mathewson. You know, the Scotland they have planned for us is not the Scotland that we would want to be part of. But there is a much different, there's a Republican tradition too. And that Republican tradition looks at things very differently. We recognise, for example, that when the SNP backs the Offensive Behaviours Act and creates a centralised Scottish police, if you like, a Scot Met writ large, that's no attempt to integrate all the people in Scotland, least of all the Irish community. That has to be opposed. And that's why I'm here as a representative of the Radical Independence, which represents the Republican wing of that campaign, because only Republicans can unite. Going back, way back to the 1790s, republicanism in Ireland was about uniting Catholic, Protestant and dissenter. I think today we would add a wider community to that. You have, certainly in Ireland, you have Poles, you have Nigerians, you have Spanish, you have Chinese. We are about uniting everybody in Ireland, but also in Scotland, we're about uniting everybody in Scotland, whatever their background. And that is the Republican tradition we want to do. What it does, it reminds us of what James Connolly said. But James Connolly, you might remember, this has been a famous statement. He said, "If you remove the English army tomorrow and hoist the green flag over Dublin Castle, unless you set about the organisation of a socialist republic, your efforts would be in vain. England would still rule you. She would rule you through our capitalists, through our landlords, through our financiers, through the whole of the commercial and industrial institutions that she has implanted into your country, our country, and anointed with the blood of martyrs and the tears of our mothers." We can look today and say, we recognise that. Because if you put a salt tile over Edinburgh Castle, unless you set about the organisation of the Socialist Republic, your efforts will be in vain. Capitalism will still rule you through the Westminster Crown powers, through the banksters' control of the city, and through the Scottish regiments still being under the command of the British High Command and NATO, and through all those corporate executives who still, whatever Scotland, which is a Scotland of low taxation for their benefit. So to return to that, we share a common tradition of Connolly, Ireland and Scotland, and it is that Republican tradition we want to rebuild, and Republic Day is an excellent standpoint for that internationalism, Republican from below. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Alan. I'd now like to ask Stevie Dodge to come up and sing another song, please.
A great crowd had gathered outside of Commemorative, with their heads all uncovered into the ground. But inside that grim prison lay a brave son of Ireland, his life for his country about to lay down. Well, he went to his death like a true son of Ireland. Well, the firing party he bravely did face, and then the order rang out to present arms and fire. James Connolly fell into a ready-made grave. Well, the black flag was hoisted, the cruel deed was over, and gone was a man who loved Ireland so well. Well, there was many's a sad heart in Dublin that morning when they murdered James Connolly, the Irish rebel. Oh, God's curse on you, England. Oh, you cruel-hearted monster. Oh, your deeds, they would shame all the devils in hell. There are no flowers growing, oh, but the shamrock is growing on the grave of James Connolly, the Irish rebel. Well, the four courts of Dublin, the English bombarded, oh, the spirit of freedom they tried hard to quell, but above all the din, it was the cry, no surrender. It was the voice of James Connolly, the Irish rebel.
Thanks very much, Stevie. I should also say that Stevie Dodds has a new CD out, available in his online shop, which I'm sure he'll give you the details of. And a donation from the sale of every CD goes towards the James Connolly statue appeal, so do the right thing, folks. In terms of Alan's speech, I'd just like to say it was fantastic, and I think it hit all the right points, particularly in terms of James Connolly Society and the work that we're doing. This year is the 20th anniversary of the Beat the Band March, a culmination of a whole series of attempts by the state and our loyalist allies to ban the Connolly March, but more importantly, to smash republicanism physically through the streets of Edinburgh and to deny the Irish community their rights to assemble and political expression. We defeated that ban 20 years ago today, and the point Alan makes is vital, because in the intervening years, we were clear that that ban had been defeated. No so as we could march around just whenever we wanted. No so as we could just become the other side of the Orange Order. That ban was defeated so as we could advance the politics of James Connolly and advance republicanism. And the James Connolly Society strategy is clear: to move Connolly from the periphery to the centre of political life in Scotland. And that means being careful of activities and the way we present ourselves. It means embracing other activities and organisations in terms of the Radical Independence campaign, in terms of the bedroom tax, campaigning against that, and a whole series of other things. The James Connolly Society makes sure that Connolly is commemorated not once a year, but every single day of the year through our activity in radical left politics. And that's exactly what we should be doing, because we need to make sure, as we advance republicanism, that we transcend the sectarian narrative that the UK state wants to place on the conflict and the Scottish Government wants to place on anti-Irish racism. Attacks on our community are racist, they're not sectarian, and the Scottish Government should be made aware of that. And to do that, Republicans have to be mindful of how we behave and how we act going forward. So this event is one of a whole series of events this year which will highlight the need for a Republican Ireland, for a yes vote in Scotland, and for Connolly, his whole political agenda be pushed forward. There's about half a dozen different events going on between the anniversary of his execution and the anniversary of his birth, so I'd urge people to get involved. I'm now going to invite our special guest, who's going to sing a very special song for the Connolly Society. Jerry Mulvena is a singer-songwriter from Ireland who over 20 years ago we met. Me and Jerry were very young at the time. I'm only 28, but it was a long time ago. And Jerry, while he was here as a student, he penned this song for James Connolly about his time in Edinburgh. And that song, all those years ago, became the anthem of the James Connolly Society. And in many of the battles that we had with loyalists or with cops, this was the song that we sang, sometimes when we were in custody. But this was the song. And this is Jerry here in the Cowgate for the very first time going to sing this song for everybody. Jerry.
Thanks very much, Jim. The voice is the important thing, not the guitar. 100 years before I saw the light of morn, in Edinburgh's Cowgate, James Connolly was born. The streets of Little Ireland were his home for many years. From the Westport to St. Mary's Street, you feel him very near. Oh, how I love to walk in the footsteps of young James Connolly. Oh, how I love to walk in the footsteps of that great man. Well, in 1911, to Belfast he came to organise the union, the women and the men. The orange men and bishops, they were most terrified to see Catholic and Protestant marching side by side. Here's to his non-sectarian band, marching through Belfast for the union's demands. The fife and the drum scorn the old orange tricks, and the ancient Hibernian stones and sticks. Oh, how I love to walk in the footsteps of young James Connolly. Oh, how I love to walk in the footsteps of that great man. Well, the national question was clear in his mind. For an Irish republic, the workers must rise. Revolution was needed, reforms would never do. And the number of counties would be 32. Oh, how I love to walk in the footsteps of young James Connolly. Oh, how I love to walk in the footsteps of that great man. So if you're walking through the Cowgate this dark and lonely night, remember young James Connolly and keep the flame alight. The social and the national, he swam in both those streams. For a socialist republic of Ireland was his dream. Oh, how I love to walk in the footsteps of young James Connolly. Oh, how I love to walk in the footsteps of that great man. Thank you.
I knew that would be good. Jerry, fantastic, thanks very much. I didn't really have anything to add, I can't really add anything to that kind of. So thanks everyone for coming along. I think exactly what Jerry says, remember James Connolly, keep the flame alight, get involved with the James Connolly Society, let's advance Connolly's politics, let's move the Republic a bit closer. Thanks very much everyone coming along, cheers.
Well, I thought I heard James Connolly's voice in the meadows just last year. How still the night, no other noise, but a sound so strong and clear. He called my name, I heard him speak, and his voice shook the branches of the trees. Then it floated away into that midsummer night and travelled southwards toward the Tweed. You can talk of New York City and remember well his Dublin deeds, but before the Hudson and the Liffey, James Connolly made a mark in Lee. James Connolly's spirit, it lingers yet in every lane and street. From Castle Hill up to Parliament Square, and in the gift of fiery speech. And when you hear the thunder clap, that's Connolly's voice that roars. So take a walk down the same stone steps where James Connolly walked before. You can talk of New York City or remember well his Dublin deeds, but before the Hudson and the Liffey, James Connolly made a mark in Lee.